My name is Jonathan Dunlap. I want to welcome you to this podcast on Web 2.0 technology and its use in the classroom. I want to begin by defining Web 2.0. It's a often bandied about term, but with little definition. I also want us to consider how Web 2.0 can be used and integrated as part of the daily classroom routine. And I want to consider a variety of Web 2.0 tools and the benefits that they provide to use in the classroom. And we'll end by considering how these tools can be used at the PA Cyber Charter School, where I'm currently an instructional supervisor. I hope that you find this video engaging and interesting, and that you're piqued to learn more about Web 2.0 and how it can be used in the classroom. If we're going to discuss Web 2.0, we must first ask the question, what is Web 2.0? This is a buzzword and an idea that gets bandied about, often without any real definition. My definition, or my thinking on what Web 2.0 is that it's about moving beyond merely finding information online passively to creating and sharing content on the web. I thought it was kind of interesting and ironic to include the definition from Wikipedia. Wikipedia's definition is that Web 2.0 is a loosely defined intersection of web application features that facilitate participatory information sharing, interoperability, user-centered design, and collaboration on the World Wide Web. It goes on to state that a Web 2.0 site allows users to interact and collaborate with each other in a social media dialogue as creators of user-generated content in a virtual community, in contrast to websites where users are limited to the passive viewing of content that was created for them. So, again, I thought it was interesting that a Web 2.0 tool like Wikipedia has a definition for Web 2.0. We're often given new tools or new information in the classroom and say, here, go use this. But we don't always ask the question why, and I think we should ask the question why. What would be the purpose of using Web 2.0 in the daily classroom? And I think there's two things that work together with one another to improve the classroom through the use of Web 2.0. And I think the underlying one is that it creates more communication. We understand that communication is essential to fostering student learning, to allowing students to engage with one another, to engage with the instructor, to receive help and support when it's needed. And Web 2.0 does this. It creates opportunities for students to communicate with one another. It creates opportunities for the students to interact with the teacher, more so than even just being in the classroom. Oftentimes students feel overwhelmed or embarrassed to engage the teacher in the classroom, but doing it through Web 2.0 is more anonymous. It can be done in the evening or outside the classroom in a different time frame, and helps the students become more engaged. And I think along with that, it really expands the classroom. It creates a digital learning community outside of the hour or hour and a half that you have students in a physical classroom and see them face to face. 24 hours a day, students can be engaging in the classroom, engaging in the learning that's taking place as part of your class. Because all of this information is out there. They can communicate, they can read what their fellow students have written, and they're able to respond and react and to post their own information and their own input. So I think these things make the Web 2.0 really part of the daily routine of a classroom. It's not something that has to be kind of shoehorned in like some sort of PowerPoint project in the middle of a learning unit. It's something that becomes integrated into the classroom. It becomes part of the daily operation.
Okay, so Jordan, we're going to make a movie about Web 2.0 technologies in schools. We're going to make a movie about Web 2.0 technologies in schools.
Great.
Do you know what that is?
No.
Hi Faith, we're making a video about Web 2.0 technology. Do you know what that is?
No.
Are you thinking of doing a video about Web 2.0 technologies in school?
Oh my goodness.
Do you know what that is?
Not at all.
Finally, I think we use Web 2.0 in the classroom because it's essential for helping prepare students for the 21st century economy. As you saw in the video, I think one of the interesting things about students is they don't really understand the power necessarily of the Web 2.0 tools, or even what Web 2.0 means. But they use these things every day, but they don't necessarily understand how those tools can be used in other aspects of their life. They use them primarily for, building relationships and friendships and interacting with, people who share common interests. Whereas we can use these tools in the classroom to help students prepare to use them in a productive way in the workforce or further on in education. We're helping guide them into that type of understanding. Using Web 2.0 in the classroom in many ways relies upon the use of constructivist pedagogy in one way or another. With constructivist pedagogy, it's all about allowing the students to find or create the meaning behind the content that's presented in the classroom. And the use of Web 2.0 needs this sort of approach to get students to engage and interact with one another through these online tools. It really kind of depends upon the teachers approaching it with this perspective and just a traditional didactic instruction. Web 2.0 doesn't really play as significant a role. And so using constructivist pedagogy provides this opportunity. And the constructivist pedagogy allows the students to create this meaning, and it teaches through collaborative learning. Again, it makes use of these Web 2.0 tools. It teaches the students the essential nature of collaboration. We who work in business and education and these types of things, we understand that collaboration is essential to the completion of our daily duties and tasks. We rely upon our fellow employees to support us and help us accomplish our goals. Also, the constructivist pedagogy provides a very flexible approach to learning. So, same thing with Web 2.0. You can take advantage of all the different types of tools, so that the goal is that every student learns, not that every student receives the information through the same way. And so this is kind of an essential idea behind the constructivist pedagogy. And finally, I think in sort of an interesting twist, not only does Web 2.0 rely upon the use of the constructivist pedagogy to be effective in the classroom, but in many ways Web 2.0 makes the constructivist pedagogy possible to use in a consistent way in the classroom, because it makes it easier to implement. One of the primary complaints about the use of the constructivist pedagogy in the past was that it took too much time. There wasn't enough time in the calendar for teachers to prepare students for state examinations and things of that nature, and engage in this creation of meaning and this collaborative learning. Well, Web 2.0 makes that easier because the classroom is not defined by the same time limitations as before. Students can be engaged in collaborating outside of the classroom through the use of these tools. And additionally, there was a complaint that students need some direct instruction, and Web 2.0 makes this easier as well. With the advent of things like the Khan Academy and other on-demand videos and the access to information, students can receive direct instruction through Web 2.0 tools, freeing up the classroom to engage in constructivist learning in the classroom itself. I want to examine a few of the Web 2.0 tools that are maybe readily adaptable to the classroom. And one of the first ones is blogs. Blogs are fairly straightforward, but they are very effective and quite easy to use. On a blog, teachers and students can post longer reports or topical discussions or reports for the class to consume and to comment on. This allows for teachers to put out information for students to receive that sort of direct instruction, but it also gives them an interactive medium as well, because the students can comment on and respond to the posts and to other people's comments as well. And so it not only delivers information, but it begins to engage students in the learning by reacting and responding to the content posted. And also it helps students learn about the connectedness of information, because teachers and students can and will reference and link to peers' posts and to outside information that's relevant to the discussion at hand. And so it begins to teach students about how the web really connects information in a big way, and how it's all kind of interconnected with one another. Another tool that's used is wikis. Wikis provide a very unique and interesting environments where students are the ones who are both creating and editing the content. It allows students to collaborate to create these shared documents. So, Johnny, Bobby, and Susie can all work together to create this whole document or this whole presentation or whatever exactly it may be, and they each have their own input into it, and they can edit and they can remove and those types of things, the different content that's posted, so it forces them to collaborate. It's not just one person contributes this and one person contributes that and one person contributes that. They all have to both contribute and edit their peers, and so it really makes the communication aspect very important. And most of the wiki tools allow the edits to remain, and I find that extremely interesting and engaging, that by reviewing the editing process, it allows students to visually see that internal editing process that we want and expect them to go through when they produce papers and original work. It gives them a visual understanding of what that's supposed to look like in their heads, and kind of creates a building block or a stepping stone to that sort of higher understanding. One of the Web 2.0 tools that we explored in this class that I found very interesting and I think potentially extremely beneficial in the classroom was the Google Circles. I like the Google Circles because it allows students to easily share ideas in that discussion format. You can post, you can respond to responses. I mean, there's a lot of flexibility there. But the features of it, I think, make it effective, make it easily used by teachers. The circles allow teachers to organize students into online discussion groups, as opposed to being kind of a free-for-all. The teachers can clearly define groups of students. The +1 button really allows the teachers to introduce content into those discussion circles. It makes it easy for the teacher to say, okay, here, this group discussed this, and this group discussed that, and this group over here discussed this thing, or all discussed the same thing. It just gives the teacher that opportunity to introduce that content specifically to those students. And I found the Hangout feature to be really interesting. It creates this opportunity for some kind of informal tutoring, especially when you're talking about between students. Students, if they can get together and they can work on a project or an assignment together, and again, it builds that sort of collaborative understanding between students. And I think it works for teachers as well. It allows teachers who are, especially, I guess, willing to go the extra mile, to have, turn on their Hangout feature for a couple hours on a Saturday, or for an hour or two in the evening, so that students or parents can come in and ask the teacher a question, or get some information, or if they need help with a particular part of an assignment. It just creates a very informal but very effective and useful way of communicating and helping students. The final tool that I find really engaging and interesting is Twitter. I think Twitter is a great tool for education because it's pretty easy to limit who you follow and who you allow in, and so it makes it relatively safe and a little bit easier to control than other things, maybe like Facebook or YouTube, things of that nature. And also, Twitter provides a really effective communication tool for teachers to reach students and to reach parents, and for students to communicate with other students in the group, that type of thing. It allows students and parents access to the teachers, but really it's limited access. If you gave out your cell phone, who knows, or your home phone number, who knows when a student might call you, so teachers really balk at that type of thing. But if you have a Twitter account, parents can send you a tweet, but you don't have to respond to a tweet. You can kind of manage your time as to when you're going to be on and be responding and those types of things. And so it lets parents feel that they are engaged, but at the same time it gives the teachers a measure of control so they don't feel overrun. And I think it also gives teachers a means for having students submit these little micro reports, these little kind of blurbs about what it is that they're seeing or what it is that they're working on. I think a kind of an interesting example of that would be having students tweet about a field trip while they're on the field trip. So if one student sees something a really interesting plaque on the battlefield at Gettysburg, they tweet about it. Maybe other students see that. They come over and they see that, and the students talk about it. It just creates opportunities for students to engage and to sort of work together to build a learning community. I think ultimately the biggest appeal of Web 2.0 is that it's changing the 21st century classroom. It's changing the very nature of the classroom itself. I believe that it's moving students more towards a self-paced curriculum in which students master content. It's not about time, it's not about a specific classroom, it's about giving students information, giving students the tools to help master that information and then move on to the new content. I think this approach will improve education overall, will help improve access to education. And, no matter what neighborhood you live in, you can access the best information out there. I think that really changes the nature of education in so many ways. I've really been inspired in this perspective from this video or an interview of Salman Khan, the founder of the Khan Academy. In this video, or this portion of the video, he discusses kind of his vision of the classroom of the future, or really not the future, it's beginning to take shape now, and I find it very interesting, and I hope you find it interesting as well.
So that's actually a great jump off. I think you've talked about flipping the classroom a little bit.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by that? And
yeah, no, it's interesting. It's if you have catchy enough words, sometimes it's good for you, and sometimes it sometimes maybe gets too catchy. Well, I gave a talk at TED where I mentioned that early days, 2007, some teachers were saying, "Hey, you made a lecture on least common multiple or adding fractions, whatever." So those teachers said they didn't have to go to those lectures anymore. They can assign them to students at home, and then they do problems in the classroom. And just that is an improvement, because now you're making classrooms interactive. Students can pause and repeat videos, remediate, and it's, once again, not my idea. They flipped the classroom, and there's people have actually been doing this before Khan Academy videos, but we're really enabling that. The important thing I want people to realize is we view that as kind of a halfway solution, because even in that model, you still have everyone going lockstep by some state-mandated curriculum. What we think we're about is, instead of a reality where people have a fixed amount of time to learn something and the variable is how well they learn it, we think the fixed thing should be how well they learn it, and the variable should be how long they have to learn it. And so the expectation is mastery. You move on, differentiated instruction. Don't do snapshot exams and say these are gifted kids and these are not gifted kids. Let everyone learn at their own pace, and we're seeing it in the data. These kids can surprise you, and sometimes the kids you thought are gifted, they had a couple of deficiencies that they can now remediate as well.
so it sounds like in many ways the simple idea of a classroom itself is really shifted. I mean,
yeah, I mean, all sorts of things, and we're still discovering them, and we're working with classrooms. We have 42 classrooms in Los Altos that they've done district-wide with 5th and 6th grade, another 30 or 40 around the Bay Area, some other charter schools and public and private schools. And as soon as you start letting every student work at their own pace, all sorts of kind of crazy things start happening. You no longer have to track students. That's the obvious thing. Every student is on their own track. You no longer have to separate necessarily even the subject matter. Why is algebra class different from geometry class, and why is that different from physics class or chemistry class? You no longer have to necessarily separate kids by age group. We're seeing this happen in the classrooms where the kids are teaching each other. So why not have older kids and younger kids mentoring each other and learn from each other? And this is another thing that could transform the field, and I think is exciting to any teacher I talk about. Right now, teaching, it's one teacher in a room of students, and it's very isolating for that one teacher. Not, most of us, we get to have colleagues on a daily basis, and we work in teams. Now if every student's working at their own pace and it's not lecture-based, now you can, instead of having one teacher with 20 students, you could have 2 teachers with 40 students, 3 teachers with 60 students. And maybe one teacher specializes, they know quantum physics, and then another teacher really knows number theory well. And so when one student really needs help in one domain, they can get that help. So all sorts of things start becoming, and there's actually a school that's piloting that in Los Angeles, where it's it's Marlboro Academy in Los Angeles, 7th through 12th grade girls are on the same classroom, just learning and teaching at their own pace.
I want to thank you for joining me for this vodcast on Web 2.0 tools and education. I hope that you have been inspired to go out and to learn more about these tools and to begin applying them in your classroom today.